Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tropic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Wednesday, the 12th. So we got past CPI data. CPI data came in a little bit lighter than expectations. The reaction or the numbers were zero point 0.2 versus 0.3. I'll get to the reaction in a second. 0.2 versus 0.3. And the core also came in a touch below expectations as well. So a little bit of good news in there. Market gapped a little bit on that reaction. But that was it. It seemed like there wasn't really follow through in terms of buyers coming back into this market, referring to like the big institutional buyers. And it looks like, to me, it felt like the CTAs, which have been the sellers, have been still continuing to sell. Risk disclaimer in front of you: everything that I'm going through is for information purposes only, not giving any advice or recommendations. Everything that I'm going through is for educational information purposes only. So what I generally do, especially on when we have a gap up like we had today, is look at this column. Did the market participants, especially the big dogs, right, the institutions, the big boys and girls, did they embrace this rally today? Did they say, hey, weaker CPI report, I'm going to come in and start doing buying, or am I going to take advantage of this little bit of a gap up and sell into it? And I think that's where you'll kind of find your answer. So the positive was, if you came in long today, if you took that chance of this, that you thought that the CPI report was going to come in lower, or made some other estimate for today, you did get rewarded because the Qs finished up 1.1%. The microcaps finished up 1.3%. SPY finished up 0.5%. But I would say, from the open, if you tried to buy anything, in the first go of it, you probably didn't fare well today. Because SPY sold off 0.6 from the open to the close. So again, like, buying that close works again. And that's been the trade now for like 30 years. Buying the close, selling the open works again. SPY was down 60 basis points. IWM sold off 1% from the open, so still like eked out a gain there, 0.2%. And the Qs sold off about 0.5% from the open. TLT, also bonds were weaker for the day. They were down 0.6 of a percentage point. Gold was one thing that did rally for the day, so I'll put this in green. I thought that was interesting. I'll go through that chart in just a second. And the VIX, which I'll also bring up, that chart was down 10% for the day, bringing the VIX all the way back. Whoops, whoa, hello. I gotta fix this somehow. Let me see if I can pause the video to fix that. All right. I don't know what happened there, but I fixed that. The VIX fell down to 24. So we could start with that. Before I do that, just a reminder that we're going to get the PPI tomorrow. It's also looking for 0.3. So same type of estimate for tomorrow, same bat channel for tomorrow. Just joking with you guys there. So that's what we're looking for tomorrow. Figured I would just start with the VIX, and then maybe we'll talk about gold for a second, and which went up, was one of the few things that went up over the session. But here's where we are. I'm gonna make this a candle. So a bit of a move down here, and let's see if this begins to kind of bring the VIX down. You probably heard me say in some other videos over the last couple of weeks is, I wanted to see a nice full, like, red, or in this case in Bloomberg it's blue, but like a blue bar indicating here's where we open and we sell off. So volatility is dissipating. Remember, just a couple days ago, we were very close to 30. I think we topped out in VIX around like a 29.50. So we almost hit there, but we'll have to see. And again, people think automatically like that the VIX sells off. It's supposed to mean that the market goes up. No, not necessarily. It just means it's telling you what volatility is doing. All right. So again, volatility coming down, and that typically will happen after a big economic report, just like vol crush that you get after an earnings report. It doesn't matter. Sometimes, let's say like a company, let's say Nvidia, for example, right? They come out with their earnings report and the volatility is in pricing like a 10% move, right? That's what the options are implying. Nvidia comes out in line with expectations, and the stock goes, uh, doesn't do much, up or down 2%, let's say. That volatility in the options is going to fall decently, right? Just because the event is done with, right? That unknown event becomes known. Same thing with what we had today, and that's partly why the VIX fell so much, is because once you get that information, that unknown information becomes known about inflation, automatically the VIX volatility is going to come out of the market, right? So that's my take on what happened today with the VIX. I mentioned gold. I want to talk a little bit about gold here. Um, GLD on the cusp of breaking higher, not yet. It's been doing a lot of consolidating. Seems like there's just a lot of things that are kind of tough, meaning they're just not fully like breaking out. And I think overall that's tough because gold got right up to the top of the value area, 270.85, and didn't quite make it through it. And I am long. I remain long some AEM. Didn't close on the highs. I took a target in this yesterday around the high. So even though it was up today, I didn't do anything with it. But the breakout is still there in AEM. But gold miners are tricky. So and this has been a tricky market even without throwing in something like that. So let's go to equity. SPY continues to be in this channel of death for now. That's being very dramatic, but yes, we continue to move lower in this channel. Again, S&P was up 0.5%, and I think it's going to be interesting too where we finish for the week, right? Because we're sitting here right around the top of the value area, right, which is 561.17. So again, we won't know because this is, today is what, Wednesday, and we've got a couple more days of the week to go, and it'll be interesting to see if price can climb above 561.37. Now we're not far from that, but if we close above that, that does not trigger the bearish 80% rule. If we kind of close where we are, or even lower, that should trigger the bearish 80% rule, which is, by the way, active in the queues now, right? Because I don't know why that's active. Maybe because we ultimately fell into it. But this is the bearish 80% rule for Qs unless we break back above 480, 486.56. Down here, I would I would be careful. But again, the week is not over. We could easily close back above that value area. We know with IWM, that's been the bearish 80% rule. That will complete down at 189, and not a good day for IWM, which sold off the hardest from the open. Let's go back to S&P here just for a second, because I want to go over the 1 hour chart. Again, I think the 1 hour chart can kind of help you see what's going on here in the short term, right? And you could see this channel. So there's nothing really like, you could guess and make predictions all you want, but we're in the middle of this channel. I could probably extend this to the right here. Let's see. I don't know if it's going to let me do that, so I will work on that later. But I don't know what's going on now. I don't know what's going on. All right, there we go. But for now, the trajectory is down and to the right, and we're right in the middle of this channel. We had a little bit of a bounce when we got to the bottom of the channel, like we've done here several times, right? Going back here, we bounced, right? We got to the top of the channel, failed. Right, we actually got a little bit higher, in the beginning of the month above the channel, and then went right back in. Get to the bottom of the channel, right? Bounce, and we got to the bottom of the channel. Here's where we were, I guess, pre-market, and sold off. Again, the right now, when the market's acting the way it is, these gap ups just get sold. And we've seen that now going for a couple weeks. So just kind of have to wait and watch for a little bit better price action. It's not to say that today was horrible. There just was really lack of any movement after the open today. So like I said, you probably did well today. If you loaded up, yesterday and bought the close yesterday, or put on a couple positions, especially in growth, those names definitely did better today. What did growth do versus value? Nice day for growth, up 1.4%. Value was down 0.5%. I also just want to bring up the Qs. Also note too, like the Qs tried to turn a couple times. Now I don't have trend lines drawn here because it's not exactly like as neat as a channel, but it's still down into the right. But you could see here, notice we've been going sideways here, since Monday. And price try to kind of break, sometimes these moving averages act a bit as trend lines, and we price try to break here. You could see once price tries to do it, like, and it fails, like, and then you start making lower highs like this, the sellers are still in control, right? So there's still selling going on right now. There's not any, people, so I would say for today, what people did was they took advantage of the bounce and they sold into it. And buyers try to assert themselves here, and there's still too much selling going on. All right, let's go through a couple other charts. Staples, which was your worst performing group. Now, I mean, this is probably something that you might want to see. Notice how Staples, I was talking about this, and this is why I didn't really want to go long Staples, consumer staples the other day, is they were stalling, right? They got to the breakout point. Here's the top of the value area for the year. And notice how many candles just stalled. The price just didn't want to do it. And look at what happened today. That's a big move down. I mean, this today, I mean, so breakouts fail both, in a very tough market that's giving you characteristics of a bear market right now, is that all types of breakouts fail, even in consumer staples, even in low volatility stocks, which I had talked about 2 weeks ago. Look at what this group is doing now. Uh, you know, Looked so solid a couple weeks ago, breaking back down, right? This market just doesn't want, there's nothing that that wants to break higher right now. Why do I know that? You think, if you think I'm being dramatic about that, take a look at breadth, right? So breadth for the day, look at how many highs there were, and so how many names were breaking out in the S&P today? 0.0. 4 week new highs today, and 120 new lows today. Now I took this, let's see if it's changed. So maybe it's more dramatic. No, it's about 24% of the S&P today made a new 4 week low, and no names made a new high today. That's the 1 month for 1 month highs versus low. What about you may ask me, well, what about the 52 week highs versus lows? Zero as well on 52 week highs. So if you're going through charts and looking for something that was showing like amazing, uh, you know, relative strength, there is nothing. Now, not to say things didn't outperform, but now I am being a little dramatic, but you got nothing. And you got 18 new lows today. All right. So this is not good breath. What's going on right now? The numbers under the hood is telling you that that it's kind of confirming what's going on right now. One other thing too, again, I'm sorry to be negative. I don't want to be negative in this video, but maybe this is helping you by telling you to be patient. We still have never, now I'm not saying that fear needs to come in, but we still have never seen any fear in this market. Real fear, right? We've seen, pretty methodical selling, right? That's also why the NIMO and the NAMO have never got to oversold conditions, because the selling has just been very methodical. It's not on high volume. It's just constantly like deleveraging. And that's also with the put call ratio. Like people aren't taking, they're not, there's no panic here either. So again, we'll see I think if the PPI number comes, so that's the negative right now, is that we don't really have a tradable bottom. We didn't see panic. We didn't see high volume. And we're not really seeing buyers come back into this market because the market went down from the open today. Can things change in the next week? I talked about this in yesterday's video. I said I think what we need to see is inflation start to come in. Well, we got a little bit of progress with the CPI. If the PPI report comes in much lower, uh, maybe zero point 0.2 might help again. Maybe that convinces people. Maybe like a 0.1 would be even better, right? And then that kind of sets us up for next week. Because again, once you get through this week, the seasonality should get stronger. So That's what I'm basically trying not to do anything too damaging, to try to fight this tape right now. Try is the key, because you're just not seeing a lot of good signals. I do think we're at the point, and I did put on a couple starter positions on, Broadcom. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if this comes back down and tests this support again. But here's your support, right? And again, you can see this on the weekly chart, right? And that's 183. That's 183.07. So for now, like, I gave this a shot to say, hey, Broadcom is testing the trend line. It's testing support. Doesn't mean support's going to hold. Also, Amazon, right, is testing support, right? So just like I went through with the Qs and the S&P, where they're both breaking into the value area for the year, but the week is not over because we're looking at a weekly bar. Amazon is trying to hold that, top of support. So, this is down from 240 to 190. I mean, I think these things have had a decent, have made a decent move or decent correction. So I don't mind starting a position, and we'll see if it works out. All right, guys, that is it for today's video. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.